Good evening, everybody. We're in the middle of Perek Lamed Beis on page Mem Aleph, opposite of page 80. Today's Shiur is sponsored Leilui Nishmas Noson ben Tzvi. The Shama should have an aliyah. The schus of our
and Shmuel
Limud HaTorah.
Eitan Shmuel ben Chanalea is having a spinal tap tomorrow morning.
And the schus
Eitan
Shmuel ben
Chanalea.
Shavar Refuah Shalema.
Amen. Thank you.
So let's recap a little what we spoke about last week and maybe add also a little explanation. When we're talking about Naftali Silberberg, which is the central idea of this Perek, love your fellow as yourself. So we started off last week with a question: is it really possible to have the same intensity of love for another as the love that one has for oneself? So to add to that a little, when we say that self-love is stronger than any other love, we're not only saying that quantitatively it's a greater love. In other words, on a scale from 1 to 10, if my love for myself is a 10, so everyone else will be somewhere between a 1 and a 9. In other words, it's the same love. The only question is, how much do I love? How strong and how intense is that love? In truth, the love that we have for ourselves is qualitatively a different love than the love that we have for anyone else. And in which way is that? All love that we have for anyone else is what's called a'ava sha'al pitam. It is a love that is based upon a reason. It is a contingent love. Why do I love someone else? So, if you want to stop and consider it and think about it, you will quickly make a calculation and you'll realize sometimes the reason is conscious. Sometimes we need to, it's a subconscious reason that we have to dig a little deeper. But we can always uncover it. There's a reason why I love that person. That person benefits me in this way or another. Whether it's a practical material benefit, whether it's an emotional benefit. It's a a'ava she'tluya b'davar. Right? Which means that it's a love which is dependent. Now, when you have a love which is dependent, how strong is the love going to be? So the love is going to be just as strong as is the reason. The stronger the reason for the love, the stronger the cause, the stronger the love. Self-love, however, has no reason. That's the most amazing thing about self-love. That's how it's qualitatively different than any other love. Why do we love ourselves? There is no reason. There is no reason. And because there is no reason, so therefore the love is absolute, because it's not mitigated by anything. It's not qualified. It's not how great is the love by... The love isn't measured against any reason. It's just an absolute love because there is no reason for the love. It's a love which doesn't go up and doesn't go down. Yes?
In the case where you're loving the other person because of the thing, I guess the case is that you're really loving the thing. Is that true? That you're actually loving the thing, not the kid?
We spoke about this last week. So what you really love is yourself.
With the fish.
Oh, and it's the thing that it's good for you. So
it's like the fish.
It boils down to it's you.
We spoke about the two people in the ice cream parlor last week, right?
Right.
Okay. Everyone is there because they love themselves. It's not that they're both there for the same reason because they love ice cream. Each one is there for a different reason because this one's there because he loves himself, and therefore he loves the way ice cream makes his taste buds, excites his taste buds, and the same thing is true with the other. Yes.
I think a lot of people do love themselves based on condition.
Okay, you weren't here last week.
But even still, it's a
but we talked about this last week.
We see it.
I understand. Spoke about this last week. It's available on video. But
does that mean that they do or don't?
They do. Everyone loves themselves.
Based on condition?
No, unconditionally. Regardless of what a person has done, a person might be very pained by something, by certain aspects of his or her personality, and or by things that they've done in the past. But the fact that I love and care for myself and I'm numero uno, and everything, my life revolves around me, which that is the essence of what that love is, doesn't change. And that's by everyone.
I'm not sure if it's a love, it's almost like a consequence.
We're not talking here about roses. That's not the kind of love we're talking about. We're talking about the deepest form of love, which is the ultimate care. And by the way, the same is true regarding children, or regarding siblings, or regarding parents. That shears the qualities of self-love to a certain extent. Because why do we love our children? There is no reason why we love our children. It's because I love myself and they're part of who I am. Why do I love my parents? Why do I love my siblings? A love between brothers, a love between sisters. That's why these are the strongest loves. But again, not only quantitatively they're the strongest, but qualitatively they're the greatest love that there is, because they're not dependent loves. So there's me, but there's also the larger me. The larger me is my children, my family, my parents. That's all part of my identity. And that's, by the way, spouses do not naturally have that kind of love. That kind of spouses, as we'll get into that soon. Yes?
Seeing that this is a Tanya Shiur, I suppose we're going to maybe speak about, like, doesn't it matter where this love is originating, from the animal soul or the godly soul? And that's probably
So when the love originates from the animal soul, that's exactly what we're saying over here. Because the guf mechullak, and because in a bodily sense, our bodies are separate one from another. So therefore, any love which I have for another is always going to be a seichel shal pitam, a rational love, a love which is a contingent love. The only way it's possible to have a love which is kamoicha, when the pasuk says v'ahavta l'reacha kamoicha, it's not only telling you I want you to love the person as intensely as you love yourself. It's also saying I want you to love the person as unequivocally as you love yourself. That's the deeper part of v'ahavta l'reacha kamoicha. That the love shouldn't be, you're not loving the person for a reason. Not only that if your love is the intensity of the love. It's not only about how strong the love is, it's the type of love. The type of love that we have and that kind of love is not possible if we're talking about from the nefesh habahamis, from the animal soul. Because the animal soul can only love, not because the animal soul, it is at the center of its own orbit, at the center of its axis. So everything is about it. That's just its nature. It's defined by its self-centeredness. It's not evil, it's not bad, but it's defined by its self-centeredness. So therefore, any love for anyone outside of itself is going to be, by definition, a contingent love, a qualified love. How is it possible to love another person like you love yourself? That's only if you have a neshama approach, and if you view yourself as a neshama, and you identify as your neshama, and you view the other person as a neshama, then it's possible to have kamoicha. Because in a neshama-dika sense, on the soul level, we are all one, and there is no self-interest in the soul. The soul has no idea, doesn't understand this idea of love which is contingent, because the soul is one with all other neshamas, number one, and also the neshama it doesn't have self-interest. So that issue also doesn't play a role over there. This is related to what we're talking about. Give me 1 second. Yeah. In the 9 days, as we mentioned, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, that we're now obviously deep in the period of Avelus for the Beis Hamikdash. And it's not only Avelus, we're not only mourning, but obviously the mourning is intended to provoke us to action. And to provoke us and to urge us to do that which is necessary in order to reverse the current state of Galus and to bring Mashiach and the rebuilding of the Beis Hamikdash. Why was the Beis Hamikdash destroyed? So we discussed that the Gemara says that the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed because of Sinas Chinam. So then obviously what is the antidote? What is the antithesis of Sinas Chinam? Avas Chinam. What does Avas Chinam mean? What does Avas Chinam mean? But that's exactly, if you realize, that's exactly what we're talking about. Avas Chinam means I love the other person for no reason at all. There's no reason why I should love the other person. That is the opposite. In times of the Beis Hamikdash, they were hating each other it was baseless hatred. There was no reason for the hatred. And how do we combat that with Avas Chinam? which means that I love the other person for no reason. The person is not deserving of my love. I don't gain anything from that person. And nevertheless, I love the person. Why? Because excuse me. Just like I love myself unconditionally, so I have avas chinam, I have a love for every other person unconditionally also. So we bring Mashiach not through the normal love and kindness which we do, which is a animal soul, a nefesh bahamis sourced love, which that is not avas chinam. That is ava with a reason. So where do we, the ultimate avas Yisrael is to the person who doesn't deserve it, just like a father loves his children, just like a person loves himself, although he's not necessarily deserving of the love, and just like a parent loves the children, even though they're not necessarily deserving of the love. And it's not only the person says, is my child, it's not like a parent says, okay, is my child deserving my love? He's not, he's not deserving my love, but I'm going to love him anyways. It doesn't work the way. Like the whole idea of having to have a reason why to love a child is ludicrous. Why do you love your child? Because. Why do I love another Yid? Because he's another Yid. Because he's a neshama, I'm a neshama, we're the same thing. If you identify with your goof, if you identify with your self-interest, then that's impossible, because everything is seen through the lens of my self-interest, and everything has to have a reason. But if you're operating from a neshama place, then it's perfectly natural that you love every single Yid, kamoicha, like you love yourself, with that sort of unconditional love. I'll get to you in a second, but you wanted to say something before.
Okay, kind of advanced past, but it's kind of, so you say that the animal soul loves itself, it does love itself unconditionally.
Correct.
So we say in a certain way that's, but for another it can't do it. But a godly soul could do it. So it's kind of interesting when you say, but then why makes the animal soul able to do it for itself? So here's the bottom line question I have is, when it says that you love yourself unconditionally, who is the you talking about? Is the you your animal soul? Meaning to say that your animal soul loves the animal soul unconditionally, but not the godly soul? So who is the you, I guess, is the question.
That's a great question, yes. And I think just like it's natural on the part of the animal soul to love oneself unconditionally, it's possible to love every single Jew in that same way if viewed through the prism of the godly soul. Yes?
My dad used to tell me when I was a little toddler making trouble, he used to say, if you weren't my son, I maybe wouldn't love you.
Right? It's the famous expression, you want to make fun of someone, a face that only a mother could love, right? That's the truth.
But I think the deeper question might be, what does this love look like? What does it look like? How does it sound like in your head? Like let's say you're in a situation where something goes not so well. What's that thought process look like? What is the...
I want you to hold that question. Because
feel like this?
I want you to hold that question. Because I think by the time we finish the class today, I think you'll have the answer. I hope so. Okay?
Because we use that word a lot, love.
Right.
So what do we mean? When we say
Right. I hear you.
How it's expressed, exactly.
Yeah, what does it look like? I think that's a great question, and I think we'll address
a
it.
working definition of love from the neshama side.
I got you.
Love is not feeling.
Sorry?
Love, it's not feeling.
Love is absolutely it's feeling, and it's care, and it's compassion, and it's everything.
So how you can see love? How you can...
No, he doesn't mean what does it look like with the if you're drawing a painting. He means what kind of feeling is that? We'll talk about. I think we'll talk about that as the class goes on. It's interesting that we say that all Yidden are one. We all share one neshama. On a soul level, we're all one. I don't know if we mentioned this last week, but this is the Arizal. There's a sefer called Taimei HaMitzvahs.
Today's Leilui.
Today, right? So there's a sefer called Taimei HaMitzvahs written by the Talmud of the Arizal, Rabbi Chaim Vital. And when it comes to the mitzvah of Avos Yisrael, he says over there that the reason for the reason for Avos Yisrael, the Kabbalistic understanding of Avos Yisrael, is that the neshama of Adam Harishon included within it all the neshamas of all of Klal Yisrael. We were all included in the neshama of Adam Harishon. Some of us were in the hand, some of us were in the foot, some of us were in the head, some of us were in the heart of the neshama of Adam Harishon. And therefore we're all one. All of us Yidden are one. And he says over there, that's why, the Chaim Vital says, that's why my master, the Arizal, would say all the viduim, all the vidui, the confessions, Ashamnu, Bagadnu. Why is he saying Ashamnu, Bagadnu? Arizal never did any Averis, obviously. But because we're part of Klal Yisrael, so even if you never sinned, you could say Hashamnu Bagadnu, because we're all one, we're all impacted by it. So from a neshama level, we're taka all one.
I don't know which rabbi went to a doctor and told the doctor my lymph hurt was his wife.
So that's directly leading into our next conversation. That was Rabbi Aryeh Levin, the tzaddik of Yerushalayim. And somewhat of a famous story that he once went to the doctor with his wife, and the doctor says, "Why are you here?" And he says, "Because my wife's foot is hurting us." That was his response. And that's a lead-in to our next conversation, which is even though we are all one, but as we mentioned, just there are certain people who are closer in the neshama. By way of example, you have 600,000 root souls that were all based in other Marisha. Those 600,000 neshamas were present in the 600,000 Yidden who left Mitzrayim. Now those 600,000 further subdivided. I believe that each one of those 600,000 subdivided into another 600,000. Each spark subdivided into 600,000 sparks. So someone's good at math over here. That's a large number. And every Jew has part of that spark, a part of the spark. So it's possible that me and you were from the same spark. In which case we're closer than I would be with you, even though we're all part of one neshama, we're all part of one body, but we're closer. Just like, for example, two tendons in the finger are closer than something in the leg, even though that it's all one, they're all one body. And families are closer, families all come from the same branch. But the closest neshama that can be is a neshama which is the husband and wife. There's nothing closer than the husband and wife, as we know that it says in Kabbalah, that a husband and wife, each one of them contains a plag guf, a half of a body. The Gemara says that a husband and wife are plag gufa, are half of each one is a half. And what?
Of a body?
The lashon of the Gemara actually is ishteke gufay. Ishteke gufa. It's actually a halachic principle. Ishteke gufa. V'hayula basar echad. Right. Ishteke gufay havoi. I believe that's the exact words of the Gemara, and it has a halachic application in terms of just fascinating that in terms of the halachic hierarchy of closeness. There's a halacha that we're not allowed to. We don't redeem captives for more than they're worth. Olden times when that was an issue, and you had pirates, or you had other bandits who used to roam the desert, and they would take captives and they would sell them off for slaves. So one of the greatest mitzvahs that there is the mitzvah of pidyon shvuyim. It's a mitzvah rabbah. It takes precedence to almost anything else. The mitzvah of pidyon shvuyim, if there's a Jew who is in captivity, we have to ransom him. But what if the captives are overcharging? We don't pay. The Gemara gives one of the reasons the Gemara gives is because if the pirates see that the Jews fetch a greater and a larger sum than another person,
keep doing it.
Then they're going to target Yidden specifically. So that's why we don't pay more. So even though that this is a case where the benefit of the collective, of the community, takes precedence over the benefit of the individual.
That's what happened with the terrorists. They capture one Israeli soldier. That's why what do they want to do? The terrorists, their biggest prize is if they can capture a soldier, and Israel has brought that upon herself by violating this concept in this halacha, right? Although it comes from an admirable place, that's in other words, that you also have to be malamed zchus. And it comes from a place of tremendous avos Yisrael, and tremendous care and empathy, but sometimes there has to be a midas hagvura, which says that there are larger issues at hand. So there's one exception to this rule of overpaying for a captive, and that is that in the ksuba it says, one of the tanoim of the ksuba, if you go home tonight and you look at your ksuba, you'll see that one of the things that you obligated yourself when you got married is that if
I don't want to say your wife, but that if someone's wife becomes captured, becomes kidnapped, then it is the obligation of the husband to pay. And he has to pay up to 10 times her value. Obligated, absolutely obligated. And he's allowed to pay even by whatever he wants. He's allowed to give all his money away if he wants. But up to 10 times he's obligated to pay.
Exception to the rule.
That's an exception to the rule. Children are not an exception to the rule. In other words, let's say someone's son or daughter gets kidnapped. That's not an exception. You're not allowed to pay for more than the value, which is obviously a very difficult halacha. But sometimes it's halacha demands difficult things.
How do you know the value?
Normal times there's a standard value. There's a value of
Kidnap
Son, daughter. How do you know the
What?
value of the son and daughter?
sorry.
The slave value.
In the olden times there was a value.
Slave value.
Yeah. There was a slave market. There was a market, right?
Skin is fat, big.
You know, in the 9 days. So we could talk a little maybe stories that are a little sad. In the Sefer, maybe some of you heard of it, a Sefer called Shilos Achuvas Memamakim. It's also printed in English, at least selections of it. It's called The Responsa from the Holocaust, written by a Rav whose name was Rabbi Ephraim Oshri. This Rabbi Ephraim Oshri was a Rav in the city. He was a junior Rav in the city of Kovna. And he had a lot of questions. He had halachic questions during the Holocaust, and obviously heartbreaking questions, you know, which were spawned by the conditions of the time. And there was the big Rav of there was Rabbi Spector, Hanan, I forgot what his name is. Yes, he passed away during the war. The Rav passed away, yes, early in the war.
Before the war?
No, he passed away during the war.
World War II?
In the ghetto, yes, he passed away in the ghetto.
The Kovner Rav?
Yes. So maybe we're talking about a different Rav. I'm talking about his name was something Spector. His last name, a very famous Rav.
Is Chuk Elchanan Inspector? Why you? Meaning the school after?
It's possible.
Yeah, it's Chuk.
Possible.
Yeah, okay. That much.
And he passed away in the ghetto. So when he had questions, he would consult with the Rav. This Rabbi Ashri would consult, and he wrote down the answers. And he buried all those answers. He was taken off the concentration camp, and after the war, he survived. He came back. He found all his notes, and he published them. It's fascinating and heartbreaking. These Shalos Achuvas. Incidentally, one of the questions that he was asked was about shaving beards with a razor, because it was sakanas nefashos to shave a beard, not to have a beard, because the Nazis, if someone had a beard, they would
Identify Jew.
first of all, I mean, they would go and they would, you know, by hand pull out the beard, and sometimes worse. In other words, it was they had special pleasure from harassing, taunting, and even killing people who had beards, and it was illegal in the ghetto. But there were razors, but the other means which are halachically permitted, it wasn't in the ghetto. There wasn't. So people asked whether they're allowed to shave their beards with a razor. So his answer was that yes, you're allowed to. Most of the answers are very lenient, obviously, given the time. He said you're allowed to pikuach nefesh, and he writes over there that there were only 2 Yidden in the Kovna ghetto who didn't shave their beard, and one of them was the Rav of the city, Rabbi Spector, again, who he said due to his position, it wouldn't have made a difference because the Nazis knew exactly who he was and where he was, so it didn't make a difference that he had a beard. And he said, and the other one was a simple Chabad Chassid who lived in the community and who just absolutely refused to shave his beard. And that Chabad Chassid, his name was Zisman, Shraga Feivel Zisman. I know his son is still alive today. But there was something about this chassid. There's nothing. Yes, pikuach nefesh, no pikuach nefesh, but he wasn't going to touch his beard. So this is what? No, he did not survive. This chassid did not survive. He had 2 sons who survived the war. One of them is labeled Zisman, and one of them was I forgot the other one. One of them passed away recently. One of them is still alive. So one of the questions he was asked, someone came to him and said like this. He said, I'm trying to remember the details correctly, that his son was chapped. They took his son, and they're sending him. I don't remember whether they're sending him off to the death camps or maybe I think they're just going to take him out to the woods, and they were planning. I think they chapped up to 1,000 It's 1,000 kids, somewhere around there. And they were all in the central police station. All the kids that were caught, awaiting their fate. I believe they were just taken and shot. I believe in Kovna they took them out to a fortress outside town. They shot to death tens of thousands of Yidden. He says like this. He says that the guards are bribable, and I have money. I could bribe the guard, and he'll give me back my son. The only thing is, the bribes weren't the Nazis. The bribes were the Lithuanians. Says the Nazis chopped 1,000 kids, or whatever the number was. They're going to want 1,000 kids. So if I go and I bribe and I take my son, what's going to happen is that guard who's going to take the money, he's going to go and chop someone else and take him in the stead. So am I allowed to do that? Am I luckily allowed to go and bribe the guard to take my son to... Imagine this question. Imagine this question. And the Rav says, I don't know. I don't know. These are halachically complex questions. He didn't have all the Sfarim also, as you can imagine. So he says, I don't know. You didn't ask me. I'm not giving you any answer. And the person says, no, Rav. Unless you tell me that I'm allowed to, I'm not going to do it. Unless you tell me clear that according to Allah I'm allowed to, I'm not doing it. They're back and forth. I can't answer you. He walked away, and the way he describes in the Sefer how his joy of this Yid, he says, today, I don't remember the exact words, but I'm doing a mitzvah like Avram Avinu who gave up his son on the Akedah, and I'm following the Shulchan Aruch, this most difficult thing I ever did in my life, and the joy he took in following the halacha, and the son was taken, the son was killed, but he knew that he did not compromise his integrity or the halacha. That's sometimes the difficult decisions have to be made, and it takes strength. So back to the we're going off a little on tangents, but back to the story about the exception is the wife. The wife you're allowed to redeem.
For more, it's valid.
Right, for more. So the Gemara asks why. Why are you allowed to redeem your wife more than a value? The whole point is you're not allowed to redeem a person more in the captive because you don't want the captors to, So the Gemara answers, because Ishtay Gufay Havoy, because a person's wife it's like yourself. So just like if you were captured, would you be allowed to spend? Would you be allowed to spend all your money to ransom yourself? Of course. The issue is only you're not allowed to pay the ransom for someone else. But for yourself, no one's going to tell you can't use your money to ransom yourself. And therefore, the same rule applies to one's wife. Not to one's children, but to one's wife. Which goes to show, that's the halachic principle. And in Kabbalah, it talks about the idea that a husband and a wife, they each have a half of a neshama, and there is that reunion when they come together, which is, the Alter Rebbe explains in a Maimer, is the reason for the tremendous joy of a chasana. A way of example, you have two best friends who have been separated for so many years, and they're rejoined. That incredible joy, that is the joy that we have by chasana. It's the joy of the reunion and the reuniting of two halves of a neshama that were parted by birth. So this idea of Ahavas Yisrael, which we're talking about, that everyone has one neshama, it's all Kal Yisrael, it's true, but in a much closer sense, that's true about husband and wife. And therefore, the principles that we're talking about over here definitely also apply in terms of marriage. That what is a successful marriage? A successful marriage is one that's based upon the neshama, based upon this idea that we are two neshamas that are compatible, as opposed to a love which is based on the nefesh habahamis, and that is a very big idea in the Jewish way of marriage. We live in a world where what's the typical way? How do marriages happen? So boy meets girl, boy likes girl, girl likes boy, they get married. And then we know the statistics of how successful on average these marriages are. Why is the reason why? Because this is the ultimate way in contingent love. It's contingent love. Each one
you could do for me?
What?
What you could do for me?
Right.
That's what they usually ask.
Right.
You do for me.
Each one has a reason. The boy has a reason why he likes the girl, and the girl has a reason why he likes the boy. But what about when those reasons go away? Or what about when other things overshadow those reasons? So suddenly the love is gone. And by us, l'chatchila, the whole thing is based on, we talk about the way the shidduch system. But what is the point of the shidduch system? The point of the shidduch system is to create an atmosphere and a situation where it's a neshamadik marriage, where the marriage is based. We're asking, what is your goals? What is your aspirations? What is are they compatible mitzad their ruchnius, mitzad their neshamas? Now, obviously, we can't take MRIs of the neshama and know whether they're compatible match, but it creates an atmosphere wherein both of them are there for a singular goal, not me to benefit myself and the other one to benefit themselves, but they're all coming together for neshama d'ker reason to create a binyan adayad on the foundations of Torah mitzvahs, which makes it again more of a neshama d'ker relationship, which is then obviously both in terms of the odds of it lasting are better, but moreover, it's more than that. It's the quality of the relationship is a greater one because it's not contingent on the self-interest of each one of them, but both of them have a higher aspiration. And what's interesting is that what is the halachic difference between a Jewish marriage and a non-Jewish marriage? A Jewish marriage is it's a two-stage process. There's kiddushin and then there's nesuin. And by goyim there is no kiddushin. There's only nisuin. We say mekadesh is Ama Yisrael like the chuppah v'kiddushin, right? Kiddushin. What is kiddushin? Kiddushin is when the man gives the woman the ring. Right? That's the kiddushin. It says hariyat mikudashas. That's the kiddushin. And then the nisuin is when the husband and wife actually live together, whether it's in the yichud room. Maybe whether it's symbolized by the chuppah and the sheva brachas. There are different opinions of exactly how and halacha, different opinions of how the nisun is affected. But in between, and by the way, today we do the kiddushin and the nisuin together. In the olden times, they were separated very often for up to 12 months for different reasons. That practice of separating the kiddushin from the nisuin was discontinued. In the olden times, you had a stage of kiddushin and then nisuin. What is the purpose of kiddushin? But the kiddushin means kiddusha, the holiness of the marriage. What is the stage of kiddushin? So here's what's interesting. What do we say in the bracha? Kiddushin is also called erusin. So we say Baruch Ata Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Asher Kidshanu Mitzvaysav. This is the bracha that's made under the chuppah by the kiddushin, right? V'tzivanu al harayis. V'asar lanu es harusais, v'hiter lanu es hanesuis lanu ayidei chuppah v'kiddushin, which means that as long as there's only the kiddushin state, the husband and wife, their husband and wife, meaning if chas v'shalom something goes wrong and they want to separate, they need a full-fledged divorce, and the woman would not be able to get married to a kohen afterwards. She's a grusha. They're 100% married, but there's one caveat: they're not allowed to live together. They're married, but they're not allowed to live together. You ever heard of the strangest? So, by virtue of what are they married? What is the definition of this marriage?
Commitment.
What?
Commitment. They're just committing themselves, that's all.
They're fully married, but neither of them is gaining any of the benefits of the marriage.
Yeah.
Because in Yiddishkeit, the benefits are secondary. The benefits, that's by the way, by the goyim, that's all there is the nesuin. Because the definition of the marriage is the benefits that they have from each other. We live together and we enjoy each other's company, and you cook for me and I make the money, or vice versa, right? Whatever it may be. But the Jewish marriage is not defined by the benefits. It's defined by the union, the union of the neshamas and the higher aspirations and ideals. And that's symbolized by the kiddushin, by the kiddusha of the marriage, which is the bedrock and the foundation of the marriage. So this idea we're talking about over here, that true relationship is based on neshama, is obviously also, and even much more so, true with regards to, it's true about all relationships and especially true regarding marriage. Yeah.
Why 12 months? Why 12 months wait?
Can you translate the rest of that
I don't know.
after Kiddishanu? And you said it in Hebrew, just I want to catch it all in English.
So we thank Hashem who sanctified us with His commandments,
v'tzivanu al arayos, and commanded us regarding illicit relationships, and he forbade for us the arusa, in other words, the stage, the husband and wife when they're the stage of erusin of kiddushin, v'hitilanu, but permitted to us as hanasuis lanu, those which are after nisuin, baruch atah Hashem mekadesh am Yisrael, blessed are you who sanctifies his nation Israel, chuppah v'kiddushin. Yeah.
Forbade us the arayos and what?
And the asar lanu sa'aruses, in other words, that forbid that when in the state of erusin, which is kiddushin, that's the first stage, forbade a relationship between the
between each other.
Yeah. So now we are going to move to inside. V'zeu sha'amar Hillel HaZaken. This is on page Mem Aleph, opposite of page 80. 10 lines in the bottom. V'zeu sha'amar Hillel HaZaken. This is what Hillel HaZaken said. Al-Kim mitzvah regarding this mitzvah, regarding the mitzvah of Avos Yisrael. Zeu kol Torah kula. This is the entire Torah. Ve'idach pirusha u'chula, and the rest is commentary. This is the famous story that a convert, prospective convert, came to Hillel, first came to Shammai. That's an interesting part of history, is that during that time, this we're talking about in the first century of the Common Era, it was a time of incredible mass conversions in the Roman Empire. I just looking at a book today, not a Jewish book. I mean, it's a book about Jews, but not written by any from source. It says that the Roman Empire, the population was 70 million at that time, and the Jewish population was 7 million, most of whom were converts, which is a fascinating. But we know anecdotally that there were a lot of converts then. Rabbi Kiva was a child of converts, and there was Rabbi Meir who was from a converts, and there was Onkelos Sager, and then there was Akilah Sager. And the Gemara here in Shabbos talks about the 3 different converts who came. And the history books talk about there was a tremendous time of people converting to Yiddishkeit. So this prospective convert comes to Shammai and says, teach me the Torah while I stand on one foot. And as we all learned in first grade or kindergarten, Shammai chased the very mean and stern and harsh Shammai chased them away. Now as adults we can revisit the story and we can realize that he wasn't very mean or harsh, and we can imagine any non-Jew walking into a rabbi today and saying, teach me Torah and convert me on the condition that you teach me Torah on one foot. What would that rabbi do? What? He would tell him to go fly a kite, right? So Shammai wasn't unusually mean or harsh. This is a person coming and seemingly making a laughing stock of the whole conversion process. Teach me the whole Torah on one foot. And so Shammai showed him the door.
Is that halacha?
That what?
To chase away?
That's true even by a convert who comes with the proper intentions and is completely respectful. How much more so someone who comes in and makes a statement such as, teach me the whole Torah as on one foot. Yes?
I know we do it, but what is it based on?
What is what based on?
That we chase away.
That's the halacha.
What is it based on?
What is the halacha based on?
Yes, Tom Gross.
Right.
We saw that.
She 3 times she tried to discourage her daughters-in-law from coming with her. So this geir comes then to Hillel, and Hillel says, you want to learn the Torah all on one foot? He says, oh sure, no problem. Okay, pick up your foot, let's get started. He said, Ma'adalach sani lachavrach lisavid, that which is hateful unto you, don't do to your fellow. Zeu kol ha-Torah kula, this is the entire Torah. Ve'idach pirushahu, the rest is commentary. Zil g'meir, go study the commentary. Yes?
I just realized as you're saying it, maybe he's saying that instruction because he behaved in a certain way that he wouldn't do to somebody else. Would he really walk up to what he did to Hillel, would he do that to himself? I just thought about it now.
The Armor Farshim who say also that he had a deeper, this convert wasn't as shallow as it seems. And he was what he actually was saying is, what is the one foot upon which the entire Torah stands? Teach me the Torah on one foot. In other words, the one foot of Torah. And maybe Shammai didn't discern that. And Mepharshim of the Gemara said, and Hillel saw what he was saying. So, oh, you want to know the one foot upon which the whole Torah stands? Here it is. Avos Yisrael.
Don't do to your fellow that which you don't want done to yourself. That is the Zeu Kol HaTorah Kula. Isn't that beautiful? But what does that mean? Once again, let's examine the statement of Hillel. We know that Hillel had a student whose name was Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai had two students, Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Yeshua. And those two students had a student whose name was Rabbi Akiva, right? So we had Hillel's spiritual great-grandchild, Rabbi Akiva, said something similar. What did Rabbi Akiva say? Someone should know this. Rashi, Naftali Silberberg, Amar Rabbi Akiva, Zeh klal gadol b'Torah. That sounds similar, but is it the same thing? Zeh klal gadol b'Torah. How would that translate? Zeh klal gadol b'Torah translates that this is a great rule in the Torah. What he doesn't say, Rabbi Akiva, he doesn't say this is the great rule of the Torah. Zeh klal gadol b'Torah does not mean this is the rule. It's a great rule in the Torah. What does that mean on a simple level? That means that Avos Yisrael Taka, how many mitzvahs are there that are, if Avos Yisrael is the klal, is the general rule, how many mitzvahs are there that take that rule and flesh it out? How many details are there to the mitzvah of Avos Yisrael? How many other mitzvahs are there that you could say really are just subcategories of Avos Yisrael? Go ahead. We can name 100 going around the table over here. If you love your fellow Jew, don't kill him. Don't take very good. Don't take interest. If you love your fellow Jew, so if you see he lost something, go return it. If you love your fellow Jew, don't be jealous of him. You love your fellow Jew. If you see that his donkey is falling, you pick. How many mitzvahs are there that are based? So that's what Rabbi Akiva says. You want to know Avos Yisrael? It's such a great mitzvah because it is a mitzvah which is a klal, which contains in it so many of the other mitzvahs are really just pratim, details of that mitzvah. But how about not wearing shatnez? How about shaking a lulav? Are those details of Avos Yisrael? No relationship, right? But Hillel takes it further. Hillel says, Zehu kol ha-Torah kula. The mitzvah of Avos Yisrael, this is the entire Torah. Ve'ida pirusha, who and the rest is commentary.
How do you understand that?
How does that make sense? But I want you, which is another thing. He didn't say v'haftach. He doesn't say that either. It's another question. Why he doesn't say the mitzvah straight?
What's a different thing? Don't do to someone else.
Yeah. How? Yeah. So how is wearing shatnez in violation of don't do to another what you don't want done to yourself?
Oh, I see. Because this. He says this is the whole Torah.
Yeah. So yeah, he's paraphrasing Avos Yisrael. We have to understand why we're paraphrasing. Probably get that next week. Why Hillel didn't say it straight out. But what does it mean? Zeu kol ha-Torah kula.
How is shatnez? How is that shatnez?
How is that shatnez? Or all the other mitzvahs should be another machaveri. How is bringing keteris in the Beis Hamikdash a part of that?
He said,
I mean, how many mitzvahs are there that have been adam al-markim, which we have to? How is davening have to do? What does that have to do with my Avos Yisrael? Or putting up a mezuzah on my door? Eating kosher, etc. So Rashi in the Gemara, he gives two explanations. One explanation that he gives is when he says Zeu kol ha-Torah kula means because the roiv of the mitzvahs of the Torah, Rashi says most of the mitzvahs taka are based on Avos Yisrael. So when he said kol ha-Torah kula, he meant most. And the second pirush Rashi gives in the Gemara, he says because what says v'hafta l're'acha kamoicha. So the word re'ah, the word your fellow, can also be a reference to Hashem. As the pasuk says, the pasuk refers to Hashem as re'acha v're'ah avicha, your fellow, your friend, and the friend of your father. It goes without saying that both of these pirushim are somewhat, in general, when Rashi brings two pirushim, why does he bring two pirushim? Because each one is somewhat problematic. Otherwise, he would have brought only one pirush. Rashi, he's not a Chaybetz Mefarshim. Rashi, they're those taka who are busy collecting many different answers. Rashi gives the most straightforward. So the problem with the first one, the problem was saying that it's most mitzvahs, is that Hillel said he didn't even say Zeu kol ha-Torah. He says Zeu kol ha-Torah kula. He had to add an extra emphasis. Not only Zeu kol ha-Torah, Zeu kol ha-Torah kula. This is the entire Torah in its entirety. And now you're going to say that it means only most of them? It's dachuk. And the second answer to say that Hillel was talking to the Ger about the way Hashem wants to be treated, again, it's not the simple interpretation. It's another example of something that when you put it under the microscope, it's much more problematic than when you give it a cursory look. It looks so beautiful. And then when you put it under the microscope, what does that mean? What does it mean?
How do you say in Hebrew what he'll say? Don't do to another what you wouldn't want done. So in
It's not in Hebrew, it's in Aramaic. He said in Aramaic, Ma da'aloch sani, lechavrach loy savid. Ma da'aloch, that which to you sani is hated, with a samach. Lechavrach loy savid. To your friend, do not do.
I have a question. It said when Mashiach come, forever Bet Shammai was mechayev that be, be the
Allah will be like Beishamai.
Yeah.
Right.
So how it's related to us now?
How is
Everything is the opposite. Everything is
It's a great question. There are beautiful answers to it, but that's not for right now. It's not really related to what we're talking about here.
don't do to another, or don't do to your brother like it. What's the lashon?
L'chavrach, to your fellow. Yes.
How is this different from the golden rule?
I believe the golden rule was expressed in the New Testament by someone who shall remain nameless in today's class. What's fascinating is that the golden rule, I believe, is do unto the other that which you want done to yourself. And Hillel said it in the opposite way. The significance of that we'll have to wait till next week to find out, probably. But I have news for you. The golden rule and its author both came about after Hillel. Hillel passed away, if I remember correctly, around the year 30 of the first of the Common Era. Oh, so then not necessarily. Okay, take that back. Yeah.
Maybe shatnez is connected to, to what Hillel said in a way that, like, if you don't have that basic principle set up first, you may not trust this guy to check your clothing. You may not trust the lulav that this guy is offering you, or you may not share it with him. Or if you're shaking lulavs, but
How about the mitzvah? How about the mitzvah of Avas Hashem?
Right. So if you don't have this, then you can't love God correctly because He made this fellow here too. So if you don't love this fellow, you can't say that you love God entirely.
You're very creative.
You're missing a vital point in every
Okay.
step of your life.
I hear what you're saying. Dr. Rebbe is going to offer a different answer, but doesn't necessarily negate what you're saying.
It's not asking you to love your fellow. Fellow is not saying love yourself. It says what to you is hateful,
Right.
do to somebody else.
Right.
That's what he's saying.
Right. Again, which is a peculiar way of expressing the mitzvah of Avos Yisrael, which again we have to flesh out that also. Okay, inside again. Key, because why is Avos Yisrael the yesod of the foundation of the entire Torah? Because yesod v'sheirosh kol haTorah. What is the foundation and the root of the entire Torah? What is the purpose of Torah? What's it coming to accomplish? Hulagbi ala haleis hanefesh ala guf is to elevate and to prioritize the neshama over the guf. Maila, so much higher. Ad ikra v'sharsha d'chol almin, up to the source of all of creation, of all the worlds. The entirety of Torah and mitzvahs, what is the purpose and what is the goal? Is that a person should live a life which is a neshama life, a selfless life, a life of service to Hashem, as opposed to a guf life, which is a life of self-obsession and self-interest. A while ago I was looking through the dictionary and I noticed that self, words that begin with self and are hyphenated, I think there were more than 250 such words.
Say it again.
More than 250 words in the dictionary that begin with self. And self-esteem, and self-image, and self-loathing, and self-loving, and self-deprecation, and a list of more than 250 words. Everyone here can probably write another 5, if I asked. Because in a world where we're in a Nefesh HaBahamis world, the self occupies such a large space that we need 250 words just to describe the various ways that we think and feel and relate to ourselves. And that's what we're up against. We're up against the guf and the nefesh habahamis, the self-centeredness, which is our natural state of being. And the purpose of the entire Torah, entire mitzvahs is, what is the goal of everything? Is that we should become neshama people. That is really what Tanya is all about. As as you said many times in the very first chapter of Tanya, the Alter Rebbe lays the foundation. What is the foundation? Is that every Yid has two nefashos, every Yid has two different energy sources, two different souls, the godly soul and the animal soul, and the entire Tanya is devoted to how to live a life which is consistent with, not only consistent, a life where you're constantly channeling and manifesting the godly soul and not the animal soul, which is the struggle of our life every single minute of our life. And it's not only about our behaviors. Our behaviors are a manifestation of that. It's a deeper battle. What is my life? Am I waking up in the morning? Am I thinking, what am I going to do today? And what am I going to enjoy today? And what am I going to do today to further my development and to further my finances and to what can I do today that'll make me feel good and give me pleasure? Or do we have a life which is devoted to Hashem? When I'm taking a sip of water or a seltzer, what is it? The action is the same, but is this an act which bespeaks my self-centeredness, my desire to quench my thirst, or is this an act of service to Hashem? And the whole Torah is to have that mindset, that mindset shift, that we become neshama people, nefesh elikis people, godly people. Yes?
So I'm not sure if I really understand. Are you saying that it's a lacking to feel good about yourself?
No. That would be in violation of every principle of the 21st century, so I will not say that. If you don't feel good about yourself, then you won't be able to serve Hashem with joy and with gladness of heart, which is a very primary idea. But we have to redefine what feeling good about ourselves is. And this is something we've been talking about for several chapters, but specifically in chapter 31. The biggest illusion that we have is that we think that happiness and feeling good about ourselves can come from our self-centered self, and it's the exact opposite. That's the source of our misery. Feeling good about oneself actually comes from living a life of the neshama, a life of service, a life of transcendence. Not that that's why we're doing it, because that would be a catch-22, if you get what I'm saying. In other words, if I'm living a life of transcendence because I want to feel good, then that's not being very transcendent. But as it happens, that's actually the source of all joy. Think about it. Why do people join the army? In America, was 1 million people in the army? More than what is the most basic desire causes people to join the army? Why do people enjoy being in the army? It's hard work. It's not like you're not getting 5-star treatment. It's not a 5-star hotel. Anyone here was in the army? You were in the army?
What?
Okay, you were in the army, right? Tell us what do you gain from being in the army?
Israeli army is different because you defending your country. American army, I don't know. I have to go because I want to serve my.
And you think the American army is the same thing?
I don't think so.
You're defending your country.
You're defending the corporation.
It's a different country, but that's what?
You're defending the corporation.
It's a very cynical look. Yes?
No, I understand what you're saying. You're saying because you're fighting for a larger goal.
Right.
There you go. There you go. When there is no greater than being bigger than yourself. If I have my own job and I'm a CPA, and every single day I go to work 9 to 5 and I make my I make my $100,000 and whatever. My life is small. When I'm in the army, I'm part of this huge thing and a goal, a noble goal, which is so much larger than me. But a Yid can be a CPA and still be part of this larger thing. That's what Torah Mitzvah says. But that's if you're living not a self-centered life. And that's really, and here's the question. If someone is living a life of the neshama, not a self-centered life, not a life of the guf and nefesh habahamis, What is symptom number one?
If he's living according to Neshama, what's
A person who's living a life, a neshamadik life, meaning a life of an avda de kutchabrichu. It's not about what you do. In other words, one person can have a cup of water, another person, but it's from two different places. One person can learn some Gemara, another person can learn some Gemara. But for one of them, it's part of the agenda that I want to be a baki b'shas. Another person wants to serve the Eibishter, wants to serve Hashem. One is a neshama person, and one is a guf and nefesh Bahamas person. What is symptom number one? What is the one thing that will differentiate them?
that you can see in behavior, you mean? Is that-
Yes. Who said simcha? Very good. I wasn't expecting anyone to answer that, but I was hoping someone would answer that. Symptom number one is simcha, as we discussed at length in the last chapter, in chapter 31. That such a person will have incredible joy. Symptom number two is avas Yisrael. Because if you're living a life which is a self-interested life, then it's all about me. Will I love another person? About as much as they benefit me. But if I live a life of an Hashamadika person, we're all one. We're all here to serve Hashem. Just like the unity in the army, right? That to a certain extent, because you're part of this largest thing, and as is your friend and the other person, that engenders an incredible unity, because by entering the army, you've to a certain extent given up your self-benefit. And you're here for the larger thing, so therefore everyone who's in there is part of that. As Klal Yisrael, if I live on a Shama life, then automatically I have Avos Yisrael. So when Hillel says that Avos Yisrael is Kol HaTorah Kula, V'idach Pirusha, this entire Torah and the rest is commentary, he meant yes. The entire Torah is about living a life of the Neshama. And where is this expressed? In Avos Yisrael. Yes?
Why keep on saying Avos Yisrael? Hashem created everyone.
That's a great question.
Eternal King.
It's a great question. Come next week and ask me the question right in the beginning of the class, and we'll discuss this next week. But we're out of time, and I want to finish with another Nakuda. It's a very good question, and 100% what you're saying, Salam Alakim, Chaviv Adam Shaniv Rabbi applies to every single human being. There's no question about it. You're asking still a good question, and we'll get to that tomorrow, next week. So, as we discussed last week, but just to once again to drive home this Nakuda, the point. The beauty of this idea is that Avos Yisrael is not about a technique. How do I improve my relationships? It's not about this technique or that technique. Avos Yisrael is a direct consequence of my spiritual status. If I am the way I am supposed to be, if I am living a Neshamadika life, Avos Yisrael is going to be the most natural thing that there is. And if I don't, then Avos Yisrael will always be contingent. But that's a symptom. That's not the cause. That's not the root problem. The root problem is that I'm living in a place of self-centeredness. So if you want to fix your Avos Yisrael, the place to start is inside. The place to start is in your own avodah, in your own avodas Hashem, because Avos Yisrael is a direct consequence of where you are standing in your battle between the godly side of you and the self-interested side that is within you. And we will continue next week. And next week we'll have to address the question about the non-Jews. We also have to we still have to go a little further into what Hillel said and figure out the incredible depth and layers of meaning and why Hillel specifically chose to convey the message in a negative form. Why didn't he just say, love your fellow as yourself? That is the whole Torah, and the rest is commentary. Don't do to your fellow what you don't want done to yourself. So we will talk about that also next week. And Yirtzeh Hashem Taka and Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh.
Amen.
We should have the rest of the 9 days, and the Tisha B'Av should be a very big Yom Tov.
Amen.
Have a good Shabbos, everyone.
Shabbos.